April 14, 1561, Nuremberg, Germany. Townspeople left their houses all together around 4 in the morning. As though they had agreed to do it together, they looked up into the sky. There was a never-before-seen bizarre sight high up in the quiet night sky. In the morning of April 14, 1561, at daybreak, between 4 and 5 a.m., a dreadful apparition occurred on the sun, and then this was seen in Nuremberg in the city, before the gates and in the country, by many men and women. And in the sun, above and below and on both sides, the color was blood. There stood a round ball of partly dull, partly black ferrous color. In between these globes, there were visible a few blood-red crosses, between which there were blood-red strips, becoming thicker to the rear and in the front malleable like the rods of reed grass. These all started to fight among themselves. Besides, the globes flew back and forth among themselves and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. The sun rising early, accompanied by flying objects floating mid-air and fighting each other. It was indeed a startling sight. Upon witnessing such a sight, a letter painter named Hans Glaser illustrated it with a woodcut engraving, which made the headlines of the broadsheet at the time. Of course, this phenomenon caused anxiety among people in the Middle Ages. They would call it a punishment from God, or a sign of the end of the world. It was interpreted as such thanks to the existence of crosses among the flying objects seen in the sky. Glaser recorded the phenomenon in a detailed manner, so that the globes which were first in the sun flew out to the ones standing on both sides. Thereafter, the globes standing outside the sun in the small and large rods flew into the sun, and when the conflict in and again out of the sun was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all, as said above, fell from the sun down upon the earth, as if they all burned, and they then wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. After all this, there was something like a black spear, very long and thick-sided. The shaft pointed to the east, the point pointed west. Whatever such signs mean, God alone knows. Despite being an actual record of the phenomenon, the broadsheet was not mentioned much until the 20th century. In 1958, it returned to the spotlight after being published in Carl Jung's book, Flying Saucers, a modern myth of things seen in the skies. Jung and other modern UFO experts stated that it is a record of a flying objects battle from the distant past, and that the objects might have been living beings or mechanical devices originating from outer space. They claimed that for some reason, a small or large-scale battle between flying objects of opposing forces broke out above the inhabited city. However, scientists said otherwise. Having studied the records and the phenomenon, scholars stated that they may have been the natural phenomenon known as a parhelion. It was recorded in an exaggerated manner by people in the Middle Ages as they were unfamiliar with it. A parhelion, also known as a sundog, is a natural phenomenon in which more than one bright spots appear at the same altitude as the sun, making it look as though there are several suns in the sky at the same time. It is a rare phenomenon, and although sundogs typically appear as a pair, in some cases there might be more of them. It is said that in the past, such a sight was interpreted in various ways, such as the wrath of God and the sign of an apocalypse. UFO experts, however, stated that interpreting it as a parhelion would be unreasonable. The fact that the phenomenon was first seen at 4 a.m., which is too early for the sun to rise, how the color was described as blood red, how dozens or even hundreds of shapes, including spheres and crosses, were seen at the same time, how these shapes were fighting among themselves, and how they were blown up in midair before landing on the ground. All these aspects support their statement on the impossibility of it being a parhelion. On the other hand, the lack of additional records, such as burning or falling debris, has been cited by scholars as an evidence of natural phenomena. UFO experts refuted this by saying that, as written in the records, most of the objects exploded in midair, and the falling debris might have been picked up again by them. Was this really an aerial battle among UFOs 500 years ago? Surprisingly, there are 2 more examples of this mysterious celestial phenomena, following the one that occurred over Nuremberg. It happened in 1566 3 times, on 27 and 28 of July and on August 7. Against the sunrise and sunset, we saw strange shapes in the sky above Basel. During the year 1566, on the 27th of July, after the sun had shone warm on the clear, bright skies, and then around 9 p.m., it suddenly took a different shape and color. First, the sun lost all its radiance and luster, and it was no bigger than the full moon. And finally, it seemed to weep tears of blood, and the air behind him went dark. And he was seen by all the people of the city and countryside. At the dawn of August 7, we saw large black spheres coming and going with great speed and precipitation before the sun, and chattered as if they led a fight. Many of them were fiery red and soon crumpled and then extinguished. The dawn, the sun, black and red spheres, a fight and extinguishing in midair. This incident in Switzerland is surprisingly similar to the one in Nuremberg. Moreover, they are only 5 years apart in terms of timing. Could it be that they continued their unfinished battle in Switzerland? Here's another example. In 1795, more than 200 years later, a similar phenomenon was seen from a hill in Frankfurt, Germany. Suddenly, I saw to the right of our trail, in a depression, something resembling a miraculously lit amphitheater. Countless blinking lights were visible in a funnel-shaped formation, aligned in a stepwise fireflies fashion, one over the other, gleaming so intensely that it dazzled the eyes. But what was even more confusing was that they didn't rest in place, but rather jumped up and down and up into all directions. Most of them, however, were stationary and just flickering continuously. It was with great reluctance that I moved on, for it was my desire to investigate it more closely. This, surprisingly, is a record written by Germany's greatest and most influential writer, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. He described the bizarre sight that he witnessed in his youth in his autobiography, From My Life, Poetry and Truth. Skeptics stated that Goethe merely saw fireflies engaging in mating, then added literary imagination to his writing. However, the phenomenon he witnessed occurred in late autumn, long after the firefly mating season. Besides, fireflies are extremely small that you would have to observe them from up close. According to Goethe's book, it says that he witnessed it from a distance. If we think about it, why would he write about firefly mating as though it was something bizarre that he had never seen before? Goethe's record bears several similarities to the aforementioned two records: the phenomenon that occurred in Germany, and the lights that were moving wildly in the sky as though they were fighting. Simply put, there are two opposing theories on this phenomenon: a natural phenomenon that is yet to be solved, or UFOs moving in midair as though they were in combat. There are many other records of UFO sightings in the Middle Ages, in the form of illustrations and texts. In the end, the question is, can these instances be considered natural phenomena? What happened in the night sky in Germany may have been passed down to this day under the name of the 1561 celestial phenomenon over Nuremberg, but the truth has yet to be revealed. This has been Strange Night.